concerning. Now, in the story that we just saw, we were talking about the government not wanting to spend more in welfare programs and a reason to keep alimony around. Tell me a little bit more about that, if you would.
Well, if you have a long-term marriage where there's permanent alimony and the judge feels that one of the parties isn't going to be able to be self-sufficient without the alimony and is going to need that help, one of the reasons the judge may grant the alimony is to keep that person's income up, because it is income to the person who receives it.
Right.
Without the alimony, quite frankly, they may qualify for welfare and other programs. And if you had looked at some of the articles by people who, like the Florida Bar, who were opposing the alimony reform, they said it's good for the taxpayers. The reason it's good for the taxpayers is because without the alimony award being income to that person, they may qualify for welfare programs.
Isn't that interesting? Now, let's talk a little bit more about this alimony for life. I know other states, in addition to Florida, have these types of rules, but what about some of the what-if scenarios? What if your spouse remarries? Do you have to continue to pay this?
If it's a permanent alimony award and your spouse remarries, one of the few good points is that would end the alimony award.
Okay, but you have to go back to court to get that taken care of, right?
Some circumstances you can find yourself in that position.
Well, what about if you lose your job, or you say, my job has changed, I'm not making the kind of money I made when the divorce happened? Can you get a reduction in the amount of alimony you're paying?
Yes, you can. Again, the proper process is to modify or seek modification from the court. You then have to go to the court and explain that you lost your job, and that the job loss was really not caused by anything that you caused to happen to yourself.
Of course, if you got a raise or took on a better job, you could also go back to court and have to pay more.
Yes, if your spouse found out about that and they had a permanent periodic award and you were making significantly more money, it might behoove them to actually go modify and have the alimony raised.
Okay, now, I guess the key here is if you're going through divorce, lay it out ahead of time. Try to get all these things adjusted and worded correctly before the divorce is done.
That's correct. If you have an opportunity to settle and you're going to have a settlement agreement, you might want to go ahead and take those contingencies into account, draft up an agreement that covers these things, covers retirement, for instance.
Or consider a prenup before you even get married.
That would also be a way to handle it.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you so much, Gerard Virga. Definitely great information for people out there, unfortunately, who have to go through a divorce. But of course, that also often requires legal fees that many people have trouble paying. Well, this year, over 7 million people all across the nation are going to be marching for babies.